Sick Harrison Price for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365. At Bet365, boring games, a thing of the past. Now, there's always a reason to tune in, even if the scorer isn't one of them. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Matt Sakaris with Blake Price. 4-time Juno Award winner, 2-time provincial basketball champion, and world log rolling champion. Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. I'm very excited.
Are you?
Oh, I'm just bouncing off the walls excited. Like this
For
morning,
the soccer should be noted.
for everything.
There's
for
not
everything.
much happening right now on the Vancouver Canucks side.
No. I'm excited for that too.
That's later, though.
I woke up today 5 a.m., bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, chipper, looking forward to the week ahead. What an extraordinary week for sports in the city of Vancouver. The biggest soccer match in the country's history, or at least on the men's side, and it's certainly on Canadian soil. Tomorrow at BC Place, Canada-Switzerland determine the final standings of Group B. And, of course, Canada with an opportunity to stay here in Vancouver for the round of 32, dare to dream even the round of 16 match.
Yeah, it's not the biggest one on the schedule because we know there's a knockout game to come, but it is the biggest one next.
Yeah, but of course, next could come in Los Angeles if they lose.
That's right.
Then, of course, the Vancouver Canucks with 4 picks in the top 41 Friday, Saturday at the NHL Draft, 10 picks total. And it is looking and sounding more and more like they are sitting in the catbird seat with an opportunity to reap huge returns on some of these veteran players.
But it's not happening until it's happening. So we'll get to that in just a moment.
It's happening for other teams around the league.
It is.
So
that's the issue.
Start with the daily poll question. Do you have a strong preference for the Canucks pick at 3rd overall? You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the Sakaris and Price X and YouTube channels. And if voting yes, please specify in reply. Tell us whom and why you have a strong preference.
The decamping has certainly started.
Well, this is what brought this poll along.
Yeah.
Blake's like, I'm starting to see Twitter wars, the decamping. I'm
You're
Team
stupid
Stenberg.
if you think so-and-so's
I'm
better
Team
than
Reed,
so-and-so.
I'm Team Carroll's. I'm Team Verhoff. On and on and on it goes.
There's going to be a faction of people that no matter what name is declared by the Vancouver Canucks at number 3, they made a mistake.
Well,
Wrong guy.
so typically, and we've talked about this, in my experience, there are some who have heart set on a certain prospect. If that player isn't selected, there's that knee-jerk, visceral, immediate, and then they rally behind the pick, regardless of whom it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're first-round picks. Most of them play in the NHL. Many of them become very good players in the NHL. And most fans want to see the glass half full. Like Vasily Podkolzin, if we had asked about Vasily Podkolzin going into his draft, I don't think a lot of people would have said, oh, yes, heart set, he is my strong preference. And when they selected him at 10th overall, there was a Russian winger. And then people rallied behind the cause. Tom Villander, right shot defenseman. There was a Zach Benson constituency.
Mm-hmm. There was.
And then many went, whoa, wait a second. An all-around right-shot defenseman, rarest commodity in the game.
Well, the Vancouver Canucks haven't drafted this high in a long time, and that's where it changes, that the higher you go,
Fair.
the stakes are higher. And so, there's a lot of options for teams at the 15th overall, 20th overall. You can't be, oh, that's the guy that has to go 20. Like, no one has those takes.
Well, except for if they're looking at who's available still.
BPA on your list. Yes.
Well, there's typically a strong preference when you're in that range in terms of who's available, because there's usually a guy or two that has fallen, and you're like, oh my God, like the public list,
And that
this
was
guy would go
Podkolzin.
10,
That
go
was
12.
Podkolzin,
Blah,
yeah.
blah.
I
Podkolzin also had the Russian factor, but people got over that quickly.
They did, yeah.
And this year, maybe the American factor. We talked about that yesterday. So I voted yes on the poll. I voted yes on the poll because I am firmly team Ivar Stenberg. If Ivar Stenberg is available at number 3, I would be quite disappointed if the Vancouver Canucks pass on him to take, well, anybody. I think he's the best player in this draft. I love the way he plays and competes. Watching him at the World Junior level, watching him at the World Championships against much older competition. And, of course, he'll play next year in the NHL too. So we will have a face to the rebuild. We will have somebody whom we can track their progress as a Vancouver Canuck next season.
And you wonder.
Not that I need the immediate gratification, although the owner might, but it does, I think, add to the entertainment and the intrigue.
And Matt, you wonder. While I can't imagine it being so black and white that Francesco Aquilini marches down and says, guys, if he's available, you're drafting that guy. We want to market him, blah, 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 blah. But you know that the Twins and Ryan Johnson know that, you know, all things being equal, and we said it's sliced very thin here. You know, even if you give McKenna first overall, the next 5 guys, it is really thin margins between all of them. There's no standout necessarily within that. So even if you don't think Stenberg, and you do think Stenberg stands above the rest, but even if you don't, isn't it? And I think it's actually a reasonable tiebreaker, Matt. If you get an additional NHL season out of this guy because you're starting his career earlier, you get to market him.
Yep.
He makes you a more entertaining product so that people will sit. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll win more, because win more is a holistic thing. You need goaltending, you need defending play.
And one rookie winger playing in the middle 6 doesn't.
Not really going to affect the price of bread.
Yeah.
But he might entertain. That quotient might go up. And that's important during the rebuild, during a stated rebuild. Yeah, you wonder how much that plays into it, subconsciously, consciously. I'm saying no.
You're saying no?
I'm saying no.
Wow, I'm surprised, because you have been Team Stenberg, you have been Team Carson Carrolls over
and that's it.
the other defense.
That's it. I like them both.
So you feel you'd be equally happy with Carrolls if Stenberg is there?
I'm going by this measure. If they choose Carrolls, am I going to be viscerally moved, like angry? Oh, they made a mistake. Defenseman versus winger.
Left shot defenseman.
Yeah, I don't know that I will be. I agree. Stenberg probably is the most ready.
That's a lot of praise.
I think he's the most ready. He might be in the here and now, the guy most skilled. But for the career,
well,
I don't know.
I got to say, because Blake and I have both been, the Caleb Malhotra dynamic is worrisome.
Yeah.
And not because of Caleb and Manny, but because of the other 22 players who will be in that room. And, of course, different faces every year. So it's going to be dozens of players. And you got to hope they're all on board.
Conflict of interest is the same as perceived conflict of interest in a lot of cases. If the rest of the people in that room
it's just awkward, it's
perceive
noise. It's another thing about the Canucks room that just hangs. Right?
Yep.
So, and we've talked about it, like the only out is if Caleb shows up and he's just instantly the best center by a mile, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, he gets all the ice time. He gets all the power play time. He gets all the best wingers,
but he's
because
likely
he's
not that
head
player.
and shoulders above every other center you have. But what are the chances of that? So, discounting Caleb Malhotra, if you just take him off the board, and there's a word, Dave Piniota talked to us yesterday about that, you know, might just be coming to the conclusion for Caleb and for Manny that their lives in the NHL, both in new roles, of course, Manny is a first-time head coach, are easier.
Chart their own path.
Exactly. So in that world, and in the world where Stenberg goes number 2 to the Sharks, I have found myself preferring Chase Reed over Carson Carrolls. And I've said, Reed to me looks like the most significant championship piece of this draft class. A big, mobile, offensively inclined, right shot defenseman. When you take a look at Stanley Cup champions or Stanley Cup contenders and what are the key pieces, building blocks, you tend to have that player before you have the winger. And yet, between some of the defensive deficiencies, and I got to admit, the American factor, I'm not 100% there. And you and others, including Cam Robinson yesterday, have me more and more warm and fuzzy about Carrolls. Because when Cam Robinson says he's the toughest and meanest of the 3 top defensemen with probably the highest floor, the least likely to bust, that's meaningful to me. That matters. I'm with Shane Malloy, who we had on the show a couple weeks ago, saying you can talk upside all you want, but where the Canucks are on the front end of their rebuild, they absolutely have to get players. Mm-hmm. The rebuild is set back if you're taking guys in the first round who bust out and don't give you at least a few hundred NHL games.
Yeah, so the debate is you're drafting Chase Reed with the hopes that he's going to be Zach Werenski. But would you draft Carson Carrolls if you were pretty sure he was at least Bowen Byram? A different shot side. But you know, that quality of player, like, would you be disappointed if he ended up a left-handed Bowen Byram?
No, I mean, that's a very good player who was taken top 5, right?
Yeah.
Some interesting stuff around the draft today. And, of course, all eyes still on San Jose, California. And Mike Greer, the general manager, what will he do with a second consecutive second overall pick? Michael Misa went in that spot last year. And, of course, Macklin Celebrini went first overall the year before. Greer saying today 5 teams have been consistently serious, quote unquote, his words, in their interest in the number 2 pick, and he's received a couple of legitimate offers, expects that to continue up to Friday. And what I love about that, outside of just the specter and the intrigue of trading a top 5 pick, which we don't see a lot in the NHL, I suspect that's a situation that plays out when San Jose is on the clock.
Yeah.
You've got time. Use it. Unless you know full well who the Leafs are taking, like unless the Leafs declare who they're taking before they're actually on the clock, I think if you're Mike Greer, you wait and see who the Leafs take. You know who you want. And then you see if any of these 5 teams or the couple legitimate offers get even more serious or more legitimate. The other thing you have to wonder there, Blake, because San Jose had already put out the carrier pigeons, look, we're not interested in moving down too far. You would have to think one of those 5 teams is the Vancouver Canucks.
I wonder if they've called, but the more and more, like I got myself angry thinking about that as a possibility, Matt, because you are not in the asset spending era.
But if it's only moving down one spot, we've talked about it, could be nominal. Greer could be sitting there going, well, if the Canucks want to move up to Stenberg and I want Chase Reed, then really anything they give me is just gravy because we're just getting our guy at a different selection number.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
Now, that's not how you'd play it. You'd try and squeeze as much as you can.
I'd have to know the price.
But I would have to think he draws a distinction between Vancouver at number 3, where he absolutely knows he's getting the guy he wants, and say the Rangers at number 5, where he's got to sweat through a couple of picks, or Calgary at number 6, where he's got to sweat through 3 of them.
Yeah, I mean...
I would bet...
A third-round pick? Maybe. But nothing in the first 2 rounds.
No, I would. Yeah,
I'm not doing that.
for sure. Look, I would suspect those 5 teams are the Canucks, the Blackhawks, the Rangers, Calgary, and Seattle. The next 5 teams, line of stern. Is there a shot at St. Louis? It's St. Louis because they have 3 picks in the first round and they're peddling, veteran players. Will Colton Parayko accept a trade to San Jose? Does that get St. Louis all the way up from 11 or 15?
Parayko knows Celebrini a little bit.
Remember Parayko, they tried to trade him to Buffalo. He nixed the deal. So I would think those 5 teams are the 5 teams right after them, although I think St. Louis is a little bit of a wild card with the 3 first-round picks. Plus, and apparently Robert Thomas is off the market. That was a distinction Alex Steen drew from Doug Armstrong. But Jordan Kyrou, Colton Parayko, Jordan Binnington, the Canucks may be the one true seller from a rebuild point of view. I think St. Louis is probably the other seller of significant veteran assets, plural.
The other possible fly in the ointment. Again, it is a non-zero chance that the Maple Leafs draft Ivar Stenberg too. It's not close to 50-50, but
he plays next year, and you're going to want to hear Craig Button later.
If I'm attaching a percentage to it, it's not a single-digit percentage for me. It's notable. It's not close to odds on, but not close to 50-50, but it's a notable percentage point for me. I could see it. I could absolutely see it. And then the draft gets thrown into chaos. And honestly, Matt, would it be a bad pick for the Leafs at number 1? I don't think it would be. I would
take him over McKenna.
I don't think they're that different a team.
No.
And if they're looking for something to complement Austin Matthews, I think Ivar Stenberg does that just as much as Gavin McKenna does.
Well, people have said stylistically McKenna is the best fit because he's a set-up playmaking winger, and of course Austin Matthews is a shoot-first centerman. But it's not like Stenberg couldn't work, wouldn't work. Doesn't bring
Stenberg's a pretty balanced winger. He's neither a setup or a scorer. He does both fairly well.
Yep. And of course he'll play next year.
Yeah.
So the San Jose intrigue remains. Look, I want to look at a consensus board here from Hockey Pipeline. And this doesn't take into account all of the public lists, like Craig Button's Craig's list is not on here. But it aggregates and it averages the most recent draft rankings from a number of sources, so as current as possible. You'll see Cam Robinson's list is there on the far right. Those you on visual platforms, Corey Pronman of The Athletic, Hockey Prospects, Mark Edwards, The Big Black Book, which has been a player in the industry forever. And so here's the consensus board, more or less. McKenna, Stenberg, Reed, Verhoff, Kayla Malhotra, Viggo Björck, Carols, and then you get into the Smiths, Lawrence, the other guys, if you will. So basically, a tier of 7? The 3 defensemen, the 2 wingers, pure wingers, the center in Malhotra, and the hybrid in Björck. And he's not the biggest, so that has some wondering, is he a center? Is he a wing in the National Hockey League? So if consensus board is the thing, the 2 wingers go, and then the Canucks have their choice of the next.
It's going to be so interesting. So interesting.
Yeah.
But
I also wonder how eager is Chicago to move up and add a Stenberg or a McKenna to Connor Bedard.
A lot of talk about the openness that because of the thin slices between all these players that maybe people don't care necessarily where they draft in the top 5, 6, 7. But you could also make the argument, why am I spending assets to move around within that group if everyone is with it? You can argue it both ways. And we'll see. We've constantly been disappointed about trades at the top. Mm-hmm. We'll see if this atmosphere, this environment is exactly what we've needed to lubricate those wheels.
So cast your vote at Sekeres and Price on X and YouTube. And again, if you do have a strong preference. Specify whom and why. Time now for our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. And now comes doing the job. Okay, our feet are wet. We've made some hires. Time to take the training wheels off for new Canucks management and get down to the business of rebuilding. Yesterday, this fella here made an impassioned plea that it's time to get on with trading veterans. He wants to see 2 veterans traded in short order and taking advantage of this scorching hot market of talent acquisition across the NHL. Even Elliot Friedman saying on his 32 Thoughts podcast, the heat is being turned up on the Canucks with other clubs, including new management groups in Toronto and Nashville, already active on the trade market. Vancouver, as we talked about, with maybe the exception of St. Louis, may be the only pure seller in the NHL marketplace this summer. That is an enviable position. It comes perfectly timed. And so it is time to take advantage and reap huge returns that this fan base has been clamoring for, some of them for 12 years, Blake, since the denouement of the 2011 Cup finalists.
Matt, I'm worried that maybe since the Twins and Ryan Johnson got these new job descriptions, they were given new company cell phones, and there's been some confusion with the rest of the league and them about how to contact them.
Yeah.
They got to send out those warnings, folks, when you change your phone plan.
You have the Rangers, who, of course, were terrible last year and are rumored to be listening or shopping guys like Vincent Trocheck, Alexei Lafreniere, Braden Schneider, even Adam Fox. You have Calgary, which is still in a rebuild, did not trade Blake Coleman last year. Okay. We mentioned St. Louis. Seattle's certainly not rebuilding, though they may have some players available. You got teams like New Jersey, Nemec and Hamilton, Markstrom. But really, in terms of teams that are quite interested in offloading significant pieces of their team for futures, you have the Canucks and, again, maybe the Blues. Like, every other team has a little bit of a caveat, even the Leafs, who were terrible last year. Okay, they may trade Matthew Nyes or Morgan Riley, but you take a look at the moves that they've made, you take a listen to what Chayka and Matt Sundin had to say, they're not interested in going into a rebuild. So the fewer rebuilding teams should be the better the leverage for Ryan Johnson and the Twins. Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, Drew O'Connor, Marcus Pettersson, and even Thatcher Demko, if not Philip Roenick, could certainly help playoff teams, contenders. The good news, there's interest league-wide. The bad news, every single one of those guys has trade protection so that you are going to have to work with them. Perhaps the marketplaces aren't as flush for each and every individual player. ESPN reporting today, keep an eye on the Canucks again. Though very few teams are pure sellers, these days Vancouver has been trying to move some of its bigger contracts. The Canucks have engaged with several teams on Elias Pettersson. For example, that's from Emily Kaplan, Kristen Shilton, Greg Wyshynski over at ESPN.
It sounds basically like everybody but Philip Roenick, though, is to some degree amenable to a trade. It sounds like Roenick is a no.
Of course, Elias planted his flag, said no, not interested in waiving his trade protection, wants to be a part of the solution here. He said that at the year-end. Press availability. Remember, Elias Pettersson looked us all in the eye and flat-lied about JT Miller. So take it all with a grain of salt.
Also, like, you don't know that the organization can ultimately pull it off. So at that point of the proceeding, that's the best political move, is to say that you're involved because that you're into the rebuild, because you don't know that the organization can pull off that move with your contract.
Right.
My contract sucks.
Yep. DeBrusk apparently just quite interested in moving on, not necessarily going to have the no-move clause stand in the way. There are some preferences there. We had heard Western Conference earlier in the spring. Many, of course, linking him to his hometown Edmonton. Don't know about that after Babcock. We'll see. But he's a player who's already acknowledged, this isn't what he signed up for in terms of a rebuild. In the case of Brock Besser, that might be more difficult. It is a no-move clause. It is a full no-move clause. He has recently gotten married to a Vancouver girl. This is the only team that he has ever known. They have a house in Dunbar with dogs, and he's got 3 more years on his no-move clause. So I'd be surprised if Brock waived his trade protection, but like if it's his home state, Minnesota, if it's an attractive, of course, Quinn Hughes there for the moment, an attractive team elsewhere, who knows? Marcus Pettersson's an interesting one. It is a full no-move clause, and it's this year and next. But of course, he signed that extension with the old management group that acquired him and that he so believed in. That's what he said. Why'd you resign with the Canucks so quickly? You barely even got time to unpack your affairs here, and you were already signing this long-term extension. Well, he talked about Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin, how he believed in them. They gone. He got 5 more years left. Coming off a dreadful season, but $5.5 million for a guy who was better in every other system other than Adam Foote's. And then there's Thatcher Demko. And as we have talked about with Thatcher, he seems to be doing better. He's out playing golf at Northlands, my spies tell me, so that's good that he's able to walk around and swing a golf club. He is days away from his no-move clause kicking in. Remember, the extension they signed him to begins with the new league year, July 1st, 2026. Are there any believers in Thatcher Demko and his health who are willing to take a big swing on a goaltender, which, let's face it, Blake, may not cost you all that much in terms of trade return? Thatcher Demko comes back and has a scorching first half. He's going to be far more expensive to acquire than he would be right now.
It's too big a risk for an acquiring team, even at the extremely low acquisition cost. And honestly, I think if you took the full salary, I mean, if we're talking about a very low draft pick, honestly, to pick up Thatcher Demko. Now, if the Canucks were willing to retain, you might start to get something back, but it's still such a big swing. I think you need 3 months of health.
Yeah.
And he can't,
of course, he's
do
in a
that.
no-move environment at that point. And then, of course, the other thing, and I've seen Canucks fans talking about this a little, is Demko is the one guy who could derail the rebuild.
Yep.
If he keeps you too competitive, we have seen Thatcher Demko make something out of nothing with the guys in front of him, right? Keep them competitive in games, keep them competitive in standings points because he is so brilliant. In the face of nightly barrages.
There are 3 key factors that can seriously derail the rebuild. Elias Pettersson, if he's still here, and there is somehow a renaissance, that's a low percentage. Slightly higher percentage, Thatcher Demko being healthy and being a thorn in the opposition side. And then 3, Manny Malhotra. If he coaches the hell out of this team defensively, and puts in a system where these players understand, and all of that will that will contribute to a much better team. On it, like I'm not talking about a 100-point team,
no,
but like could it be a 20-point improvement? Yeah, I think it could be. I think they could absolutely be a 20-point better team.
84 games next year. Could you be an 84-point team, a point per game?
Honestly, I think that's possible. I'm not probable, possible.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. Elias Pettersson's name continues to gain traction here. It seems like you've got more and more teams and more local media marketplaces talking about Elias Pettersson. Let's go to Montreal. And this is Marco D'Amico of RG Media, who says, to me, the most interesting trade and bounce-back candidate is Elias Pettersson. Hearing that Vancouver is open to retention to a degree on his deal at $9.5 million with cap rising, that would quickly become a 2C money. Playing behind Suzuki would be a huge load off for him, both for Suzuki and for Elias Pettersson. Montreal was seeking that second-line center from this time last year all the way through to the conference finals. It was clearly one of the separators between them and Carolina. They have a great young prospect in Michael Hage there, but he's got one more year. He's going to play at Michigan, so he's not going to circle into their lineup till, March at the earliest next year. Can you afford to wait that long? You have to make your move now. Montreal, good number of picks and prospects because of the years of rebuilding. Now, Canadian market, where there's an awfully big fishbowl, I will say that. But yeah, the whole notion of retention on Elias, because there's 6 years left on the deal, Blake, at 9.5, so you're retaining $2.1 million per year for 6 years. That's $12.5 million. The return should be outstanding for that. Like $12.5 million should be multiple first-round picks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know we have been like, you don't want to retain on 6 friggin' years. Like, you do want to allow yourself to be competitive at some point towards the end of that window. It's so irregular. Will the owner want to pay a guy to not play here for 6 years? That seems beyond the pale. And yet, when you think of it in terms of total money that you would be paying and what that should be able to buy you in terms of talent, be it prospects, picks, young roster players, then all of a sudden the return for Elias Pettersson looks a whole lot better than if you're shipping off $11.6 million, which, needless to say, even teams with cap space, that's
if the question is $11.6 million,
not a $5
gone,
breakfast. That's sitting down for a luxury breakfast.
If the either or is $11.6 million gone for minimal return, or $9 million gone but for a very healthy return, sure, I could be convinced of that. But I'm not convinced that at $9 million gone and retention there, that the Canucks are hitting a home run and getting, serious return.
Oh, I am. If you're retaining $2.6 million for 6 years, like $2.6 million for 6 years.
I agree. It's punitive.
That's $15 million plus that you're saving another team.
Yeah, but that team is still
going. That's a lot of money.
Okay, we're still getting a 55-point player for $9 million.
Yeah, and as Marco points out, that'll be second C money real soon, if not already. By the end of the 6 years, it might look like a bargain.
Hey,
if he does
I've been
back.
saying all that too.
Yeah.
I just think in execution, it
is harder.
It's harder to get.
Yeah. David Pignotta was very instructive with us yesterday from the fourth period in the DFO Insider. This account did a great job of encapsulating what he had to say. Jake DeBrusk, value a first with a prospect or a first and another piece? Yeah. Look what Ross Colton went for, 2 third-round picks. Look what some of the other prices that have been paid.
Samoskevich even.
Yeah, Mackie Samoskevich, a first and a second. They're not all perfect comparisons.
But we're not talking about 40-point players even.
Is a proven goal scorer, a terrific power play guy, plays with skill, $5.5 million, consistent, healthy, and has term left. And term is actually desirable now for the first time in years. Then David said, and he sort of mentioned without us jumping in, he thinks Besser's worth even more. And maybe that's just the goal-scoring upside, right? Brock's been a 40-goal guy in the past. He was quite firm. Philip Hronek does not want to be traded and has told Vancouver he will invoke his no-trade clause. So I think we can stop with the mock Philip Hronek trades. My understanding his family is very happy here. And happy wife, happy life. If you've got a great family environment in a city you love, and you can only imagine after coming from Detroit where he did a whole lot of losing to Vancouver where, okay, I've done losing, but take a look around. It ain't Detroit.
I'm glad somebody in the Hronek family is capable of smiling. That's good to hear.
And David also saying, hey, look, these players hold value because of the weak UFA market. Now, news today, Darren Dreger reports the Canucks are still interested, I guess, in Twasson's Brendan Gallagher and are working with the Canadians to bring the former Vancouver Giant home. The question is whether Montreal will pay an asset to get off his $4 million salary, $6.5 million cap hit, or if there's enough interest from rebuilding teams or clubs just trying to get to the cap floor or interested in his leadership and intangibles that Montreal doesn't have to pay to get off the contract. Dreger saying, sources tell me Kent Hughes and Ryan Johnson, GM of the Canucks, continue to have trade discussions, negotiations on the possibility of moving Brendan Gallagher into his hometown of Vancouver. So they're continuing to work
Gallagher's
away.
got some say there, too. So even if other rebuilding teams are...
He'll come home, though.
No. I'm saying elsewhere. Like, they're saying if there's a market elsewhere.
Right.
Well, Gallagher's involved here. So
Yeah. I mean, I would have to think that Vancouver's at the top of the list unless it's maybe a team where he can envision winning a cup and where he has a top 9 role.
Does a cup-winning team find a spot for him when Montreal did?
Yeah, I mean, Montreal's deep on the wing, but yeah, I don't see that playing out. What I will say is, please don't come out of draft weekend with 10 picks, Brendan Gallagher, and expect this market to crown you. No. You have to move some of these veterans out.
It's
not just about acquiring another veteran, even a high-character local guy. It's about moving some of these guys out. Maybe there's a match to be made with the Gallagher salary coming over and Pettersson going back the other way, Blake.
You need to get some business done. And as somebody responding to the poll question just said, if it's Verhoff and the Ruck twins, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah. And then Rick Dollyball reporting Teddy Blueger and Derek Forbert, we knew that, will be hitting the open market on July 1st.
And we said, hey, Blueger can come back because it'll be a cheap...
probably not.
But here's the thing. If the Canucks are going to bring
so
back...
few centers that maybe Blueger is going to hit way too big a payday for him to come back on the cheap.
But more importantly, we just saw at this past trade deadline, there were no offers for Teddy Blueger. And I don't know that Teddy Blueger can be better than he was last year. So assuming that he could even just replicate the scoring rate that he had last year, he clearly was not a commodity at the trade deadline. And if you're going to be bringing
or the Canucks just drew the line and said, we're not going to be taken advantage of and just take that for Teddy Blueger.
Right. But still.
Yep. There was tepid interest.
If you're going to bring in any veteran next year, it has to be a veteran that you can envision flipping.
That's right.
If the offer is available.
One of the biggest days of the NHL calendar almost here, and the Daily Faceoff has you covered. Join Jeff Merrick, Tyler Yaremchuk, Carter Hutton, David Pagnotta, live for the Daily Faceoff free agency special. They'll break down every signing, every rumor, all the biggest moves as they happen. Catch the show July 1st, 9 a.m. Pacific on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. In a moment here, we're going to get into the Hockey Hall of Fame's 2026 class. But first, I have a friend coming to town today from back east. I said, what would you like me to stock the fridge with? He's like, I want some good hearty IPAs for at night.
Oh, like a Play Dead.
I got him the Yellow Dog Play Deads. It's a big beer.
In the Darth Vader black can.
It's a magnificent can.
4 packs, tall cans, on special for the month of June. He's also a bit of a sale kind of guy, Matt. He likes to get things on sale. Look for it on sale at private and government.
It was on sale.
Stores.
It was on sale. I was considering, should I get the hazy IPA, the Squirrel Chaser? I take the Play Dead. We want the Play Dead.
Yeah.
Let me go back for the Squirrel Chaser. A former Vancouver Canuck and a First Nations player from Anaheim Lake, British Columbia, among the inductees to the 2026 Hockey Hall of Fame. There's the entirety of the class. Big week for the Tkachuk family, needless to say, galling as it is. There's Keith, who never won much of anything in the playoffs, and doesn't even hold a candle to Theo Fleury's career, getting in before the ex-Calgary Flame. There's Pekka Rinne.
Couple good goalies.
Patrice Bergeron, one of the great two-way centers of his era. But former Canucks general manager and executive Brian Burke goes in as a builder, and former Canadians and Canadian Olympic goalie Carey Price enshrined in the player category. Canucks shouted out to Burke, serving as GM from 98 to 2004. Burke instrumental in bringing in key players, including the drafting of the co-presidents Henrik and Daniel Sedin in a draft day masterclass 1999, the last time the Canucks held a pick as high as this year's number 3 overall. He shook up the market. He was a most accessible leader of the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, he told me stories about when things were going poorly at the box office. He would personally call individual season ticket holders, Blake, to find out if they could get him back. Like, he was that intertwined in the business of the Canucks as well as running the hockey side of the Vancouver Canucks. Needless to say, learned at the heel of Pat Quinn, who he counts as one of his mentors. He mentioned Pat Quinn as part of a 3 wise men who helped him along his NHL journey. Gary Bettman was also on his list.
Such an interesting personality. He, like a lot of old school prickly kind of guys, was also one of the warmest guys.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was really...
Teddy and Grizzly, both Bears, all in one. Brian Burke.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a very interesting person. I always got along great with him. Others did not. Sports Page did some great pieces on his battles with Tony Gallagher, his battles with Neil McRae, that while quite venomous, ultimately there was common ground found on all those fronts. And it was an interesting bygone era. Like, that feels like 80 years ago.
Yep.
And just the way that...
But he had very strong attachment to this community as well.
Yeah.
Of course, married your ex-colleague, Jennifer.
Then Mather, yes.
Now Burke.
Yeah.
Or
I don't know if it's Burke anymore.
They're split.
Yeah.
But anyways, when he won the Cup with the Anaheim Ducks and he had his personal Stanley Cup party, if I'm not mistaken, he told us this once, he did it across the street here at the Century Plaza Hotel. Like, it was in Vancouver. It wasn't in Anaheim.
Mm.
It wasn't in New England, where he's from, right? It was, Vancouver. And of course, a couple stints here with the Canucks too, right? He learned from Pat and then came back.
And he was the most memorable of all and it just became more commonplace, I found, after he said it, of, don't give me credit for building these Ducks. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Bob Murray did it.
Yeah, Brian
Murray.
Yeah, he was very, very complimentary of.
But I've heard that repeated since then of people just being like, hey, half the team was already here.
No question. Yeah, and like one of the legendary storytellers in the game as well. Carey Price, what can you say about Carey Price? I mean, really, they should make a movie about Carey Price's life. His father flying him by bush plane to games and practices around the Caribou, Williams Lake. His mother, of course, a chief. In the early days of Carey Price, when the Canadians came to play here at Rogers Arena, there would be hundreds of First Nations kids in the stands watching practice or morning skate. And I can remember on one such visit, we were all waiting for Carey Price as a media corps. It must have been 45 to 60 minutes after every other Montreal Canadian player had cleared out. And then Carey finally emerged from the dressing room, and somebody said to him just flippantly, boy, they really kept you long. And he said, if it was up to me, I would spend more hours with them. That was the measure of Carey Price then for his community. It is still the measure of Carey Price today. Just an absolute phenom of a goaltender with the athleticism and mindset to excel at the position. Truly one of the... If you don't go back to the best days of Dominic Hasek or Marty Brodeur, I think you can say that Carey Price is probably the best goaltender you have ever seen. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some other excellent ones who are quite resumed now, Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky, to be sure, with multiple cups, which Carey never won. But in terms of playing the position to its optimum, I'm not sure there were many better than Carey Price. He is the Montreal Canadiens' all-time leader in wins by a goalie with 361, and needless to say,
they've had some keepers.
They have had some goaltenders in Montreal over the years. Vezina Trophy and Hart Trophy, right? One of the rare goaltenders to win league MVP. Who can forget the performance in Sochi in 2014 where he leads Canada to a gold medal? The record 5-0, the goals against average 0.6, the save percentage 9.72. He did not give backup Roberto Luongo a sniff of that crease.
And he gets a gold at the World Cup in 2016 as well.
And the World Championship. So we got all three of the golds that were available to you at the senior level.
But on best, just those two, robbed of the opportunity to get another one in the 2018 games because of their choice to not go.
Right.
You know, and he's still very much an everyday number one player at that point.
Yeah, and it's too bad that injuries took their toll and forced him to retire. I would have loved to have seen what Carey Price could have done with an extended long career like Marty Brodeur had, right? Like Dominic Hasek had into his 40s.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got what he might have gone in his favor wasn't like a heavyweight keeper by any stretch of the imagination. I think his body would have held up if it wasn't for the knees ultimately that took him down.
Yeah.
But it's too bad. He had years left.
He's
38 now.
I know. And he's been out of the league for what? 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah. 24 years, yeah.
Yeah, and he was also sort of what goaltenders put their bodies through these days in terms of being the most efficient, the most economical, playing the position, and what it's now asking of the human body. And Kevin Woodley talks about this all the time in terms of moving in unnatural ways. When I think of Carey Price, I think of that a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
What he did and what he put himself through to play the position at that level of excellence.
And we say he retired 4 years ago because of the pandemic and such. Since the end of the 1920 season, which was abbreviatedly cut short, he's played 30 games. So really, it feels like he's really been retired for 6 years.
Yeah. The other thing I always will remember about Carey Price is the Habs would come into town and you would have these two British Columbia hockey icons, Carey and Brendan Gallagher, at the height of his powers, who everybody would want to talk to because they were both so interesting. Gallagher, of course, always so cheery, chipper, and all that. And then the Canucks room would open, and all the Quebec media would want to speak to two Quebec hockey icons, Roberto Luongo and Alex Burrows, right? Because Burrows always had something to say, especially en français.
En français.
And then there was Roberto, who loved meeting his hometown media and discussing in both official languages. And hell, if there was an Italian guy, there would be 3 languages. I will never forget, as long as I live, Alex Burrows on that stationary bike, carving Stefan Auger, letting us in, telling us he told me before the game he was going to give me a penalty, and sure enough, he got me towards the end, and it's unfair, and on and on. And like his voice is trembling, he is shaking, he is at tears. And Roberto Luongo, at first, is on the bike behind him, sort of staring into the media mass with a little bit of a smirk on his face, like, oh boy, Burris really stepped in it here. And then when Alex kept going and going, Roberto, and was Roberto captain that year? I forget if he was captain or not. But Roberto said to him en français, tais-toi, meaning like, okay, enough, shut up. And Burrows just kept going. And then Roberto got harsher en français in terms of, that's enough, Alex.
I do forget that Carey Price was in goal for the bubble run.
That's right.
Like he almost finished his career on the highest of notes in the most unlikely of scenarios.
In the bubble run.
That close.
Yeah. Then there's the coach of that 2014 Sochi team, Mike Babcock. And Mike Babcock was in Edmonton today talking about Mike Babcock and doing so in the third person.
As predicted.
As predicted by our Frank Corrado. He mentioned to him that Mike Babcock speaks in third person.
And we're like, really? Does he really? He's like, yeah.
What was the quote he gave the fine folks in the Alberta Capitol?
Well, we don't want you in our room if you're not 100% in on Mike Babcock. Mm-hmm. That was Mike Babcock saying
Mike Babcock wants you 100% in on Mike Babcock.
Yes.
Blake Price isn't 100% in on Mike Babcock.
I am not. Apparently,
is Mike Rogers? Matt Sakara certainly isn't.
It was a very interesting presser.
He was unrepentant. He said he did nothing wrong in Columbus. No. His wife told him it's time to get out of town.
Yeah, this isn't working. It wasn't good vibes with the coaching staff, too.
Right.
So his wife says it's time to get out. That's why he wasn't there.
So for everyone who thought, okay, there should be some contrition, there should be some introspection.
Second chances in life.
There should be a gentleman there who understands he's been given another opportunity and that he needs to be a better human being going forward.
None of that happened.
Not so much.
None of that happened.
Mike Babcock will continue to Mike Babcock.
Yeah.
I just cannot conceive. Like, our friend Steve Tambellini used to get raked over the coals in Edmonton when he was leading that team through a very dark period when it was clear they were on their way down, not up. And he had a meddlesome new owner there in Daryl Cates. And that market, was highly critical of Tamby. Then their old guard came back, Kevin Lowe and that group, and, they were protesting in front of their houses. Then came Peter Chiarelli with the Stanley Cup ring from the Boston Bruins, and still the management was poor. They have since gone out, bumped Bob Nicholson, the former Hockey Canada chief, into a emeritus role. Hired Connor McDavid's agent to be the president of the team. Hired Connor McDavid's junior coach to be the coach of the team. Hired Stan Bowman and his Stanley Cup rings from Chicago. And Blake, somehow the management has gotten even worse.
And now I'm starting to feel less sorry for McDavid leaving, too, because McDavid, you're going to leave. You had to say on all this. You invited all of this.
But, Blake, the other thing I think it is, I think it's a good example of what everybody in this market has been fearing and talking about for the better part of 12 years. It doesn't really matter who your managers and your coaches are if you have poor ownership. Yeah. Because what's the common bond in Edmonton through all these managers, all these coaches?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we know that Daryl Cates likes to have a say.
Owner wanted Yakupov. Well, great. And news coming from the Vancouver Giants as well. In the province on this story, they're expected to name Michael Dick as the general manager and head coach in a homecoming. He coached the Giants for 5 seasons, including the 2019 League Championship, with Bo and Byram on defense. He spent the last 3 seasons as an assistant coach on the Toronto Marlies bench, and he's got a Calder Cup championship ring as of last week.
That's right.
I have 2 guys heading Vancouver benches this fall who have won the Calder Cup. Manny and him. Giants, of course, cleaned house in April, just 1 season into the Nat Dominicelli, Parker Burgess era. Of course, it was Barclay Panetta, the ex-GM's Dominicelli estate in the organization. Giants. Since the Mem Cup, what did I say?
Giants need to find their old identity back.
Well, I mean,
it's been a while.
And I will say this, like, every time I've talked to Ron Toigo about it, like, he takes a fair share, if not full blame. Ronnie has been very upfront. He's a pretty straight shooter that he has screwed up a lot of things there. But holy cow, the instability of the Giants since they're, like, when I moved here in 2007, Blake, the Vancouver Giants were held up as sort of the beacon of junior hockey. I had come from a market with Brian Kilray and the Ottawa 67s, who were sort of the beacon of the OHL. Stability, did their fair share of winning, especially in the up cycles. got to the Memorial Cups. And the Giants were exactly that, playing before big houses in a
10,000.
building that was
Yeah.
once an NHL home. Like, they were the class of the WHL.
And a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's because they moved to Langley and they're out of sight, out of mind."
It's not just that.
The crowds had already gotten very small at the P&E.
Yeah.
That's why they moved to Langley.
Yep. Time now for our menu, brought to you by our friends at Greta. Fantastic spot to pregame, postgame. You are mere steps from the arena or the stadium. If you're looking for a venue for your next private party, you got to check out Greta. Guarantee you won't have more fun anywhere else. The arcade that encircles the bar with a game for just about everyone. The competition will turn up as the drinks go down. Speaking of, there's your own full-service bar right there at the back private riser. Won't be waiting around for drinks. Surrounded by screens, whatever you want on TV. And then the food. So delicious, so unpretentious. The poutine serves too. You have been forewarned. It is a decadent poutine. Blake and I have even shared one.
I don't remember that.
We don't do a lot of share. Well, there was a lot of alcohol involved during the Four Nations, if I'm not
I must have
mistaken.
expunged that from my memory.
So get to gretabar.com for more information to book your event. Craig J. Button will join us, TSN Director of Scouting. We'll go through what the build-up to a draft looks like for a Director of Amateur Scouting and your amateur scouts. Of course, Craig serving in that capacity. We will talk about the likelihood of trades in the top 10. We will talk about what San Jose will do at 2, what the Canucks will do at 3. Craig's got some interesting observations in terms of what Ryan Johnson has been talking about and how that might be a bit of a tell or a hint of where they'll go on draft day. And, of course, we'll talk about the Ruck twins from Osoyoos maybe being drafted by the Sedin twins of Ornsköldsvik. Also on the show today, Manuel Veth of the German soccer affiliate Transfermarkt, and it is a giant in the industry. Manuel's based here in British Columbia. He's been covering the Canadian team. We'll talk about tomorrow's huge match against Switzerland. Also, the perspective of somebody who's covered a number of World Cups in terms of what we're seeing on the streets of Vancouver and the streets of all of these host cities where the vibe is amazing. We'll look back on yesterday's World Cup. We'll look forward to today's matchups. England about to hit the pitch here. We'll talk some Whitecaps. We'll talk some Lions where they're injury ravaged heading into Kelowna. Blue Jays and C's, big changes on the PGA Tour, and a massive trade in the NBA. It's all coming up on today's program. It is time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I went 1-1 yesterday. I got a little greedy. I got my over on the Norway-Senegal match. I was a goal away from covering an outsized over on Algeria and Jordan. But we're 5-3 in World Cup plays, and all 5 of those victories have come at plus value. And in fact, most of them at plus 200 or above. There's even a plus 400 in there. So we're feeling really good about our soccer plays. I don't love anything on the menu today. Canada tomorrow versus Switzerland. All Canada needs is a draw. The Swiss tend to play tight, low-scoring games. We saw that in the 1-1 tie with Qatar, who they allowed to stick around. We saw that for 75 minutes against Bosnia in a 0-0 match. Canada only needs a tie to advance and win the group. I'm going tie at plus 210.
I went deep into the menu today to find some value, and boy, did I find value. I really like this. The NHL draft menu. They pit prospect versus prospect. Who gets drafted first? One of the options, Alexander Command versus Ryan Lynn. Ryan Lynn is getting an awful lot of shine these days. Wait till you hear the number. I'm going Ryan Lynn to be drafted over Alexander Command, plus 320.
Goodness gracious.
I think I found a hack.
Did they know something about Alex Command that we don't? I know he's got some helium, but goodness gracious.
That number's huge.
It's gargantuan. The worst thing about hockey season, at some point every year, it ends. A lot of time between now and the first puck drop next season, which feels like an eternity if you're accustomed to watching games nightly. The good news, Bet365 still has plenty of games, just none that require lacing up skates. At Bet365 Casino, you can choose between hundreds of slots, live tables, your favorite games, or, well, maybe your second favorite games. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Craig Button, next. Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. And the draft is coming. Everybody knows this. The Nation Network, your destination for all the action. June 26th, The Sheet with Jeff Miracle and live from Toronto with Pierre Maguire for pre- and post-draft coverage, plus custom player profiles for each of the picks in the first round. Of course, there's a lot of Canadian content in this draft with the Leafs picking first, the Canucks picking third, Calgary's picking sixth. I mean, there is all sorts of intrigue across the fleet of Canadian seven. And a gentleman who has been on the NHL draft for decades, one of the innovators of public scouting, brought scouting to the networks. TSN's Director of Scouting, Mr. Craig J. Button, joins us for one last hit before the draft. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really, really well. How are you guys doing? Vancouver, soccer
fantastic.
Fever is hit out there.
It
Has
has.
it been something to watch?
This is quite a week in our city, Craig, with the Canada match going down tomorrow and the Canucks holding their highest pick in 27 years. Not to mention 2 first-round picks, 4 in the top 41. Like, there is a lot of sporting excitement in this city this week, so we're absolutely stoked. Talk to me. You've been a scouting director. We're 90-some hours away from the draft going live. Craig, what's the process from here? Is the hay in the barn? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who you're selecting? Or is there any sort of final meetings that take place with the scouting staff before we get going for real on Friday afternoon?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are going on. And number one is teams are trying to ascertain. They have their group of players. You know, again, you can't lock in. The only team that can lock in right now is the team picking first. They know that no matter what else, they can say, this is our guy. Do the discussions continue on? Yeah. But right now, the teams have their group of players, and they got to wait for some things to unfold. So you're debating, discussing, okay, if this scenario happens, if that scenario happens, how do we feel? Are we comfortable? And really, you shouldn't be lacking confidence at this point in time. You should just be trying to solidify the confidence you have, because the process you put in for a long period of time, the course of it's not just one season, it's a number of years you've been watching these players. So that's where you're at with respect to that. You're also evaluating, what possibilities exist for trades. And I'm not talking in the top 5 or, rarely do we see anything like that happening, but it's with other picks. You got the Vancouver Canucks who have the 25th pick. Would they package the 25th pick in one of their seconds to move up? Is somebody interested in giving them a couple more picks? I'll give you an example. The Calgary Flames, who have 30th, would they give the two, I think 35 and 36 to get to 25, which gives the Vancouver Canucks, a couple more picks? Because the one thing that I've always learned and I always felt is that when you get to that point in the draft, there's a group of players that fall into a range from 21 to 50. Mm-hmm. And why do we hear, we can't believe he was there? Do you know why you hear that? Because teams have rated players differently. And so now there's this maneuvering. Who do we think could be there? Well, if we get a chance to get 2 of our players in our group of 5 or 6 instead of 1, why don't we try to give ourselves that chance? So I think those are the discussions. Those are the considerations you're looking at this point in time. But the vast majority of the work is being done. The other area that you're trying to guard against is those players you really like that you think you can get. And I'm talking about through the draft after the, I guess, 8, 10, whatever, is that you're making, okay, are we sure we can get them here? Do we have to move up? Because some teams are thinking about moving up too. And, you know, the Canucks could also package the 25th pick and one of their seconds to move up a few spots. So those types of scenarios are being discussed and debated, and you're trying to cull information. And this is one of the hard things to do with the decentralization of the draft.
Well, that's why I wanted to
hard
get
for teams
into.
to do that.
That's what I wanted to get
Great
into.
segue,
Is
Craig.
that, and we're going to get into your mock draft in a second here, but with the Canucks so obviously affected by what San Jose chooses to do in front of them, there's going to be a lot of talking right till the final moment here for the Canucks. Is that easier to do when they've got their separate war room? They can have all of their infrastructure around them versus the chaos of the floor. Is this a good setup for the Canucks, given that, they're not the Leafs. They don't just walk up and choose whoever they want. San Jose's in that sort of scenario too. They just walk up and say whoever they want. The Canucks they have to know who San Jose's choosing, I think, before they make their choice. So how much does this help being decentralized or hinder, for that matter?
Yeah, I would answer the question, Blake, as a yes and a no. Yes, it does remove some of that distraction, call it chaos. There's not as much chaos when you're zeroed in. Like, somebody, I always chuckle this because this happens. Ryan Johnson picking 3, some team picking 14 might say, hey, what would you consider to trade your? Listen, phone me next year. You know what? We haven't had a chat about this. I'm not trading back to 14. You get those kind of calls. So you just manage that and put that out of the way. I think what you get an opportunity to do face-to-face that you don't get to be decentralized, you're within your group, you can have those discussions, there's not cameras on you, nobody's kind of thinking, and you do worry about eavesdropping. Because remember how the tables are set up. It's
pretty
set
tight.
up from the team picking first, second, third. So there is eavesdropping. Trust me on that. And, so you're always kind of, what are they doing? Who are they talking to? You're watching on the floor. So you're trying to get that information. So you remove that chaos, but at the same time, you can talk to teams and you can quickly maneuver. It's a little bit. I know texting and instant messaging is prevalent, but it's not the same where you can just make a little. And sometimes what you can't do, and trust me, managers do this, is they do a little deception. They go over to some table and they say, "Hey, how's it going?
How many M&Ms do you have?"
And you know that the cameras are on. Oh, look at that! Look at that!
Oh, look at
Ryan
that!
Johnson, he's talking to Jason Botterill. Oh, what could they be talking about? And Ryan's going, well, you remember when we played together? What do you think, Jason? I'm like.
We've got 5 blue M&Ms. We'll trade you for a bag of potato chips.
Do you have pretzels?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I got to say, Craig, for me, something is lost with the decentralized draft.
Yeah, agreed.
I loved the theater of all of that, both as a television viewer and when Blake and I were there tableside doing our show. You just picked up so much beyond just the GMs going over and having a chit chat. You picked up who was the GM talking to, who was the director of amateur scouting talking to, which often gave you an idea of who were the key people around the table. Of course, you had coaches there twiddling their thumbs, doing not a whole heck of a lot, and so they'd meander over and come talk to us media guys. I'd be happy to come talk to us media guys. And then, of course, you had the parade to the stage and all that. I feel like something is lost in the decentralized draft. It was something the NHL did that was different than the other leagues and increased the drama and the specter of draft day.
It was unique and special, Matt. I totally agree with you. And I understand the idea behind decent. You want to be in your own bubble, so to speak, and it gives you that opportunity for for greater privacy. But I think what you lose is far greater than what you gain. And, with free agency being so close, the agents have an opportunity to start discussions. We see trades in the NHL happening, and now that can manifest itself in different ways. And when you're in close proximity in hotel or on the floor and everything, hey, I'm going to come and meet with you. You're trying to do contracts. Yeah, you can do them by text. It feels impersonal. And I like the personal nature of it. I like the players, and the players will still be sitting there with their families, but it feels different. The commissioner goes up and the team marches up there and they have a jersey and everybody's waiting in anticipation. And even if like in the case of Macklin celebrating that he's going first, they're still in anticipation. And then all the opportunity for everybody to be together, to see people you haven't seen, for coaches to be relaxed. I mean, once training camp starts, coaches are anything but relaxed. So to have them in a relaxed atmosphere, and you know how it is. Coaches are asking, hey, what do you think about this player? What do you think of our pick? Yeah, that's a good player. Nobody's trashing any player on draft day. We've lost that, and it was unique.
Yep,
you're
quite right.
I'd like us to go back to it.
Yeah. Okay, the big question everybody's asking, what do you think the San Jose Sharks are going to do at number 2?
When you move from 8 to number 2, it's no different than Toronto moving from 5 to 1. Options you didn't think you had, whether it be in selecting a player or considering moving into different spots of the draft, they didn't exist at 8 and at 5. Well, they do now for Toronto and San Jose. So that's the benefit of them winning the lottery 1 and 2 for the draft. I think that when you look at the San Jose Sharks, and we always get into this best player available. Well, who is the best player available? Every team's list is different. It would be simple if you just said, okay, here's the players that are, and you just go, okay, that's the next guy. It doesn't work like that. So if I look at the San Jose Sharks and I look at how many really good young offensive forwards they have, and then you consider what they went and did. They traded for Gasso, advancing that pick into 4 years with a player in a trade. They pick up Kesselring. They move a couple spots back in the draft to fill out that part of their lineup. It feels to me like they have a bunch of the areas of their team covered off with respect to prospects and current young players. It feels like that defense spot, specifically that right shot defense spot, is vacant. And it feels like this is an opportunity that's presented itself to the San Jose Sharks that is very different than if they were picking 8. And for me, that feels like taking a right shot defenseman. I feel that Chase Reed, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he ends up being the best player in this draft. And and people say, well, why don't you have him number 1? Because I'm not there yet. I'm just saying, like Tim Stützle back in his draft year, it wasn't going to surprise me if he ended up being the best player. Lafreniere had shown ability, certainly Byfield had shown ability and potential. And I feel the same way about Reed. And I think that you look at the offense and the forwards and you look at Sam Dickinson, it feels like you got bookends now for a top pair defense if you draft Chase Reed.
Yep.
Now, they might look at it and say Daxon Rudolph fits that bill or Keaton Vierhoff fits that bill. For me, it's Chase Reed, but it still comes back to a right shot defenseman.
And it makes a lot of sense because you have to, for lists like yours, you have to evaluate the here and now. It is not simply a potential list. It's a here and now
list
and a resume. Yeah. Exactly. What have you accomplished to
date? We all see their vacancies on defense. Chase Reed is a great play for tomorrow and the pretty near tomorrow. But they also want to be better right now here, Craig. So I guess that's where if I'm Mike Greer, I'm a little bit torn here because it's a great pick. In 3 years' time, we've got like probably a number 1 or number 2 defenseman. But also, I think they want to make the playoffs next year. I think they probably feel like they're due to make the playoffs next year, and he doesn't really help you. Even if he plays next year at the NHL level, he probably doesn't. Is he really helping you? So you look at Ivar Stenberg and you think he's probably better than William Eklund will ever be. He's probably better than Michael Misa. Do we just raise our quality of forwards and then trade one of Graf, Eklund, Misa, and get a defenseman that helps me now and helps me make the playoffs now. It creates more work. It's more work for Mike Grier, but isn't the end product a better team next year?
Tell me what's harder to do, to find a top pair right shot defenseman or an offensive winger?
100%.
Yep.
100%.
Defenseman for sure is harder.
Way harder
You're
to
gonna-
find a top pair right shot defenseman.
It's
So,
going to cost you that winger
you're-
plus, maybe plus to get that top pair right shot defenseman.
Your premise is correct, and this is the different options that present itself now for San Jose, Blake. So you're but those things don't have to be mutually exclusive either. You can pick number two and have somebody in place, and also go out and try to address what you need in terms of a defenseman. You start to think about Chernishev and Misa had big time chemistry. They showed it this year. They're ready to help. You got Celebrini and Will Smith that are already doing. William Eklund is what William Eklund is. Graf is, so now you're trying to fill in, and that's why I bring up Kesselring, right? I bring up, Gasso I don't think is ready. They just took that pick and advanced it by a number of years. But I think there's different opportunities to improve your team that don't just mean, having to focus right now on the here and now. Mike Grier, because of the salary cap room, because of the situation he's put the San Jose, they've become attractive. They become attractive for a whole host of reasons. So you got the free agent market potentially with respect to opportunity. We know that there's players that are going to become available with trade. Who knew that J.J. Peterka was going to move from Buffalo to Utah for Josh Doan and Kesselring, right? So Bowen Byram is out there. Like, does Bowen Byram become somebody that fits? And I just mentioned Bowen because you hear his name. So there is opportunities, and it goes back to what I said. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, but it's options now. And something that could be real to help the San Jose Sharks now, I don't think it's present if you're picking 8 like it is at 2. So absolutely, Blake, something that San Jose has to consider, but you also have to consider it in, what's your opportunity cost as opposed to what can help you right now.
It's been really fun to watch the NHL this week because there's been so many trades and there's been some draft picks swapped later. Is this the year the much anticipated top 10 draft picks are traded? It almost never happens. We always talk ourselves into it and it never happens. Is this draft open enough that people are more willing to move around, do you think?
I'm going to answer yes, Blake, because I think that it's also the landscape that you need to have present as well. And I think you just laid it out perfectly. And, I'll give you an example. I was asked who could be the biggest wild card in this draft. And, you could pick any number. But Mathis Preston, who had an up and down season, largely due in part to some injury, is that this is a very gifted, very talented player. And a team could be sitting there going, well, we think he's as good, and we might be able to get him in picks somewhere in the 20s. And so now, like Ottawa. So Ottawa could sit down, and I use that, and they could say, well, we'll trade the 9th pick, and we'll get another pick. We'll just pick a team. The Calgary says we want to pick. We want to move from 30 to 90, get something extra, right? And they go, well, we're going to get Mathis Preston, who we really think highly of, who's really skilled. And I think that goes on. But I think this draft has a number of players like him, and whether it be Mathis Preston or Nikita Klepov or Igor Shilov or Wyatt Cullen, there's players that we may not be talking about in the top end of the draft. The teams are going, we think they're every bit as good as this player. I worked with Les Jackson for a long time, and one of the things I learned from Les was that we talk about a player. So let's just say, we really like Blake Price. So, he fits a lot of things, and Les would go, well, could we not get a very similar player in Matt Sakaris in the second round? He might not have the same notoriety, but we might be able to get the same player in Matt Sakaris. So it's that type of thinking that prevails. I'm not trying to diminish you, Blake, and enhance Matt, but that's some of the thinking that goes on.
All due respect, we're very
different players.
Very different players.
I just can't believe he's the guy with notoriety. He's the guy with notoriety. He's the blue chipper. I am merely the second rounder. Okay, Button. Let's
Merely, I put you in the same category.
Hey,
Isn't it amazing how some people look at the glass half empty?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I am just lucky to be in his presence, Craig. To ride shotgun with
Brooks
him daily.
Rogowski.
Absolutely.
You're Mbappe to Blake's Messi. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Thank you. I will take Mbappe. Okay, so let's say San Jose takes one of those defensemen you're talking about, and let's say it's Reed, because he's the right shot guy at 2. Is it a no doubt slam dunk for you that the Canucks should take Stenberg at 3?
No, it isn't. It isn't a slam dunk for me. I think the Canucks are in a very, very good spot where, I think we look at the draft in terms of them picking 3, and Stenberg's a really good player. Don't get me wrong. We've talked about, getting a center that can come in and help your team and whatnot. Maybe they think very highly of Viggo Björck, like where teams are at. But I think there's still, like at this moment in time, where the Vancouver Canucks are going to kind of set their direction. Are they going to trade EP40? Are they going to trade some other players? Are they going to go into a spot? I mean, I've heard Ryan Johnson talk about it now a number of times. In a rebuild, he keeps using the rebuild word. And he keeps using patience. You got to be patient. Well, there seems to be a little bit of a tell there that this is not about, and I keep talking about the defense and the 5 defensemen they have, specifically, excuse me, Hronek, and then some of the good forwards they have and they maybe need. But if they decide that there's a market out there for some of for a Philip Hronek or for a Brock Besser or for an EP40, that to me changes everything in a significant way. So while we look at the 3rd pick and say, okay, is it Stenberg? Is it Maholtra? Is it Viggo Björck? Is it Daxon Rudolph? Is it Keaton Vierhoff? Again, we're back to the margins of the draft, right? We're back to the area where there's not a lot separating these players. So I think that Vancouver now, in setting their direction, will be able to better state what they want at 3. And maybe maybe before any of this is done, they have to make but I think there'll be an indication at 3 who they pick about where they're headed. And let me back that up with what Toronto just did. John Chayka, came in. It's not about a rebuild. And he's done it by trading for Emil Andre. He's done it by signing Darren Radish. It's about, hey, they think that they can become a team competing for a playoff spot next year. They feel that last year was an aberration because of injuries and a number of things. So to me, they've set their direction that they're trying to make sure that they have a team that can be better next year than they were last season. So I don't think you're going to see them take somebody that's a project for 2 or 3 years down the road. They need somebody I think that I can't rule out Stenberg going to Toronto because of what he could mean for Matthews. I think McKenna's a heck of a player, but I think it's thin between the two of them. If they call out Ivar Stenberg's name at 1st overall, count me as not surprised.
Yep.
If they take Chase Reed at 1, I'd be more surprised.
Yeah, right. Because as everyone says, Stenberg is the most ready to play in the National Hockey League next year. And if it is, we're trying to retool it, Chayka, Matt Sundin, and be a competitive Leaf team next year. And I can absolutely see the case.
I see for Viggo Björck, you've added C/RW. Is there a question? Is there a question?
Well, he did play right wing. Yeah,
yes.
No. I think starting at right wing might be a better path for him in the NHL. Yeah. So that's what I allow for. I see him as a center all the way. I do see him as a center. But I do. Oh yeah, I have no doubt about it, Blake. I think he's a Swedish Nick Suzuki. I do. And so when I again, sometimes you just got to start just because it's a little bit easier to start on the wing with the responsibilities and how coaches want to get you acclimated to the NHL. So that's why it says C/right wing.
All right, last question here for Mr. Button on the National Hockey League entry draft because, Craig, the value he delivers to TSN across all of the platforms and all of the different ancillary things he does around the NHL draft. But his mock draft this week, and the segment is already run, you can also find it at tsn.ca. He decided to have some fun with the Vancouver Canucks and the Sedin twins leading up this organization. So there's the top of his mock draft, and he's got them taking Caleb Malhotra at number 3, and I don't think that would surprise anyone. But as the draft goes on, he's got them taking Liam Ruck, one of the Ruck twins from Osoyoos, British Columbia, at number 24. And then look at who's there at number 29, Blake, having moved up from 33 and flipped picks with the St. Louis Blues for the purposes of taking the second Ruck twin,
yes.
Marcus. And to be fair, Craig, if that scenario were to play out, you think that's extraordinary value because you got Marcus ranked as your number 16 guy. But talk to me about twins taking twins on Friday at the NHL
Well, I
draft.
mean, yeah. Well, how about twins that are leading the organization taking twins? I mean, Brian Burke, who was inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame on Monday, June 22nd, I think it's the greatest draft day maneuver ever. To get Daniel and Henrik at 2 and 3. It was magnificent. NHL teams were thinking, how are these two guys going to play a part? Like, how do you think they'll do? How do you think they'll perform? And Brian was thinking, I'm going to find a way to get them together. And it was. There's no greater draft day maneuvers. It was a masterclass by Brian Burke. And so now, yeah, you can. Why not? It's a mock draft. Let's have some fun, right? And the Sedins, and my comparable for Liam Ruck is Daniel Sedin, and my comparable for Marcus Ruck is Henrik Sedin. So really, what I've done is I put Daniel and Henrik on the clock, and I said, "Come on, make it happen." Yeah. But there is a potential fly in the ointment here, guys. Washington has the 16th and 18th pick, and could they be a team that could jump the queue, so to speak, on the Vancouver Canucks and not even give them a chance and just take the two of them at 16 and 18? They got some good young players. They got some good young forwards. But, you think about marketing in the NHL with good hockey players. I think Liam and Marcus check those boxes. And let me say this. There's a number of teams. I shouldn't say a number. There are a few teams that have really expressed how they could possibly get both Liam and Marcus in the draft.
Yep, absolutely. Burke and the Vancouver Canucks gave the whole league the blueprint that they are better together.
Yeah,
we used to always say about Henrik and Daniel, Craig, they have played more organized hockey together on the same line than any two human beings in the history of planet Earth. That has got to be worth something at the highest level of our sport.
But Craig, don't you also, as soon as Liam goes, do you not draft Marcus if you're a team nearby that, and then you can hold the other team?
So you're going to take your first round pick and use it as a hostage for another team? Honestly,
you're going to get some sugar for it.
Yeah, I don't know, Craig. What do you think?
Is Vegas picking between Washington at 17?
Yeah, very good.
That'd be very Vegas.
Vegas never picks, Craig. That's the thing about this exercise.
Yeah, well, I know. But
the house is never at the table gambling its own chips. It's the damnedest thing. They're just buying somebody's winnings. Yeah.
The alert would go up, though, immediately. Like let's say Washington takes Liam at 16, right? Or Marcus at 16, whichever one, right? But the alert would definitely go up, and somebody would be saying, like, okay, should we do this? Can we leverage it? Hey, listen, it's just part of it. I got to tell you a quick story. And it's Brian Burke, and it's the 1993 draft. So Bob Clark had gone to the Florida Panthers, and we were some of our scouts in Minnesota, because Bob Clark had been our manager, were going over to work for Florida. So, we were picking 9th, I think, that year in the draft. San Jose was picking 2nd. It was Korea. It was Anaheim 4, Florida 5, and Hartford 6. And everybody was trying to figure out how it was going to work out, right? That was Daig, Pronger. So everybody's maneuvering to try to figure out how to get to Pronger. Well, Brian Burke is the manager in Hartford. They make the big trade. But Clarkie, as they're going to make the trade and Hartford's moving up to 2, Bob Clark leans back, and as Brian Burke's walking by, and he says, "We're taking Kozlov." And at 5, because what Brian Burke had guaranteed San Jose is that Kozlov would be there at 6. And Berkey stopped in his tracks, and there was a big old debate. So as it went on, go back and look at it, as it went on, Bob Clark said, you know what? I was part of this. I was an intermediary as we were trying to get up to get Pronger, and we couldn't. And now you found a way, and you were using me. He goes, simple. He ended up getting 2 second-round draft picks for not taking Kozlov.
Never know.
Berkey didn't call his bluff.
I love the intrigue. I love the anticipation. I love those moments when the name gets called, and particularly when there are surprises. It is tremendous theater, and you are the best in the business at it, my friend. Craig J. Button,
Thanks,
Director
Craig.
of Scouting of TSN. You can catch him all weekend on the draft. Appreciate this.
Yeah, my appreciation for you two is high. Thank you for having me.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. Big game tomorrow, Blake. Very, very big game. So we had to call in Z German from the Giant transfer market. He had the good sense to marry a Canadian girl and move to Vancouver Island. Our buddy, my MLS Cup playmate, because he was with me all weekend in Fort Lauderdale, Mr. Manuel.
Was he your camera guy?
Veth is here. No, he was my everything.
Okay.
He got me situated in that soccer milieu. I don't swim as freely in that milieu like you do. So Manuel was my be-all and everything as we covered MLS Cup. Great to have you back on the show, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. It's nice to have this amazing tournament right in our backyard, isn't it?
Oh,
Can you believe how much it is hit? Like, there's a lot of skepticism. Will they get this right? Will they get that right? Are the stars going to shine? I mean, really, there's not been a bad foot forward here. And in some ways, some people might be disappointed because people love to lambaste FIFA, of course. But, is there anything to criticize about what's happened here in the first couple of weeks?
Wow, that's a good question. I can't really think of anything. Top of my head, the organization has been good. In both Canadian cities it's been brilliant. Getting to and from the stadium, the way we've been treated as media has been really straightforward and easy. I went down to the US and did a game in Houston, and there as well, it was pretty good. Not as good as the Canadian cities, but good. And so from what I've seen so far, that part has been good. And then, I mean, Toronto, the Canada game, the opening Canada game against Bosnia, the atmosphere was fantastic. And I was then there for the Germany game on the weekend. And oh boy, I didn't think so many people would travel. Although I think most of the Germany fans that were there were maybe locals with German roots. Because I went and I ticked something off my bucket list. I went to the Hockey Hall of Fame before the game.
nice.
There were a lot of people with Germany jerseys there that spoke English. And so I was like, okay, these might be people from Kitchener, Ontario.
Yeah, a lot of Germans in Kitchener. You're right. Yes.
No, but here's the thing, Manuel, and you've covered other World Cups.
Yeah.
It takes over cities. It takes over countries. It's just we're experiencing it on the ground for the first time. And so there's this wonderment, there's this discovery, there's this range of emotions and fascinations and joy that is coming home to roost on the streets of Vancouver, on the streets of Toronto, and in every other city that's hosting the World Cup. I mean, it truly is the world's game. And, I can't speak to the other cities, but being on Granville for several hours after the match against Qatar, like the goodwill, the vibe, the spirit of camaraderie was, the only other thing I can compare it to was the 2010 Olympics here.
Yeah, so I unfortunately was living abroad when the Olympics were here. I was doing my master's in Amsterdam, so I missed that. But I have done World Cups in the past, and it feels just the same. Despite it being so spread out, the host cities do feel like tournament cities. And that was my biggest worry, that, that we wouldn't have the same feel as we have if it was in Europe. Now, the one thing I would have to say is still the travel, the distances are enormous, right? We are more used to it than maybe the Europeans are. But there too, I think the Europeans that have come or from other countries, they've kind of embraced it and just turned it into this almost like journey, passage of a rite of passage to experience this North American lifestyle. And so maybe there's not as many, but I think the ones that are here are really enjoying it.
It is quite a journey. It's like Sam, Frodo, and the Precious. That's how long the journey.
Some of the accounts are just spectacular. Really
Unbelievable.
enjoyed it.
And the discovery. We played the French fan last week at the Buc-ee's truck stop down in the southern U.S. It's just too much.
But on the pitch, Manuel,
Buc-ee's is amazing, though.
On the pitch,
score another European fan for Buc-ee's.
On the pitch has been just as good. Mbappe showing up, Messi showing up, Holland. Yeah. I mean, it did
and on the same day too, 2 weeks in a row.
The sport has not suffered either. It's been pretty spectacular, and now Cristiano Ronaldo as well, adding to that here today. So I mean, rarely do you get that, all the stars shining so bright.
Yeah, no, I think they've all delivered. Yesterday was spectacular, right? With Messi, Mbappe, and then Haaland also joining the show. He was incredible. Yeah, Ronaldo got on the board finally today. He had faced a lot of criticism, and I think rightfully so, because of the superstars, he has been by far the worst. He scored against Uzbekistan today. And you could see all of his teammates kind of coming to kiss the ring.
Yes.
Sort of showing their like, oh, we still love you and all that. And I said it on another show earlier this week. Portugal, for me, was one of the top tier nations to maybe win this tournament, but they're not going to do so with him up there. It's just not. It's just not going to do it.
Yeah.
The top nations, if you're not playing Uzbekistan, by all due respect, the top nations are going to identify him as the weakness he is. Football is a weak link sport. You identify the weakest link in the chain, and you make use of that. And he is, with everything he has done, he is the weakest link in that team because he's old and he's slow. You can isolate him when he plays against players who are maybe half his age, or actually are half his age.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They literally half his age. They're going to use their physical advantage over him. And this is not Saudi. This is not the Saudi Pro League. If you're playing against one of these really top nations, Spain, France, Germany, Netherlands, etc., even Norway now, I put them in that category too. They're going to have
fascinating study. Okay, let's move on to the big one tomorrow. Because for those who don't know, Manuel is Bavarian. He comes from Munich. He has great sourcing with Bayern Munich, which means he knows everybody who is handling Alphonso Davies on both sides of the ocean. Talk to me about your expectations for Alphonso tomorrow.
I have a really hard time reading what happens tomorrow. I know that Bayern Munich tried to push Davies' first appearance for Canada as far into the future as possible,
right?
Because of the niggling injury, and there's of course a past there. Bayern Munich were really unhappy with how Canada Soccer handled the initial injury that has led to all these other injuries that have happened since. I've get this comment on social media all the time. Well, Bayern Munich must be doing something wrong with the medical staff. Yet, we have top NHL players flying to Munich to see the very same doctor. So they must be doing something right there. So I'm not sure this is on them. I do think, though, there is a ton on the line for this match tomorrow at BC Place. Because if you win or tie against Switzerland, you are staying in Canada, right? And that is extremely important for what's going to happen down the road. If this team stays in Canada, they have a good chance to come through the round of 32, go through the round of 16. It's a completely different story, right? If they have to go down to the States, I don't know. I think it gets just substantially harder for them. So now there's something on the line, right? Bayern Munich might argue, well, you're already through the group. You don't really need him. Now Ismaël Koné is out. Totally different player. I'm not saying Davies comes in to replace Ismaël Koné. Ismaël Koné is one of the most complete midfielders that Canada have, and he's going to be one of the most complete midfielders in this game once he matures. Alphonso Davies is a left back who can also play in wing. It's a completely different thing, but he brings a little bit of an X factor, the creativity, the thing. He makes it more difficult for the opponent to play against Canada, right? With Koné gone, you need to add another new element. And so I do wonder if there's now a push and pull in the back and saying, well, maybe now it's the time for him to finally make his appearance, whether it's later in the game against Switzerland or maybe even from the start. And that is the part that I still have a hard time reading. Even I know Jesse Marsch speaks later today at the press conference. Maybe he will reveal something, but where I'm sitting right now, I would say it's 50-50 maybe that he starts, and I think we're going to see him.
I like Nathan Saliba a lot. I think he has turned into a nice player. I don't think looking at what he did in match day 2 is of much consequence given where Canada was at in that match at that time. A great free kick, obviously, but just in totality, I don't know if he can point to that and say he did great there. He should be the replacement. But maybe he still should be the replacement. I'm just saying I don't know that that's the criteria. Who do you see replacing him? And does Canada get creative at all with the starting 11?
I think it's Saliba. I really do. He had a fantastic year in Belgium. He is maybe in his trajectory slightly behind Koné, a little bit of a different player, right? Not quite as complete, but very good central midfielder whose stock has risen significantly. I know that a lot of teams in the top 5 leagues in Europe are looking at him right now. There has been some rumors about him potentially going to Freiburg in the Bundesliga. So he is going. His stock is on the rise, and he's going to be another player that Canada will have who will be playing in one of the top leagues in European football. And so I think he's ready to step into that role, and I think a lot of people will be watching that and how he handles it. But he's a little bit of a different player, right? So we can't really... I think he's ready to start, and he's ready to play a big part in this team, but you cannot expect him to do the same things as Ismaël Koné. So that changes the entire static of the team. That changes the way you play. That changes the way you play through midfield. That changes the way you attack and all that sort of things, right? That you lose a little bit of speed maybe as well, right? Which is why maybe adding Davies back in is a good idea. So yeah, I mean, these are all things to consider.
Yeah, Nathan Saliba has been a professional for 6 years, going back to 2020 when he was a 16-year-old at CF Montreal of MLS. And yes, still onwards and upwards is his trajectory. I know you know Jesse Marsch. I know Jesse is well known also over in Europe.
Yep.
All he needs is a draw. He was talking yesterday about we press and we go forward, and that's what we do. And I love that he's encultured an identity in the club, Manuel. But I do wonder about being a slave to that identity and not finding different tactics and strategies for different circumstances and opponents that you're facing.
They'll go 5 at the back if they see a result, but it's just a question of when they go 5 at the back. Is that at the 45-minute mark or is it at the 70-minute?
How worried are you, Manuel, that they get a little caught up and this is who we are and this is what we do, and they don't play the conservative match that gets them a draw, even if it's a 0-0 draw before 53,000 home fans and through to the round of 32?
Yeah, I think it's a really tricky thing to play against your own identity, right? And Jesse will know that, right? I've known him since he coached in Salzburg. He was briefly in Leipzig, and then of course in England. And he's not exactly a coach who is willing to throw this identity to maybe get more out of his squad. Or get the results he needed. That is something, that's his conviction, and I think that needs to be applauded. And, I don't want to sound too critical, but it is also something that has stood in his way at times, right? I'm thinking back, it worked really well in Salzburg, it didn't work so well in Leipzig, and it hurt him in Leeds towards the end as well. So, but on the other hand, he's not necessarily wrong in this approach either, because if all of a sudden go, okay, we're going to go a 0-0 draw here, is that really going to work? I would say probably not, because you have built into your team that you're always going to play attacking football, you're always going to press, you're always going to be aggressive. And then to say, oh no, today we're not going to do that, is going to be something really hard to just turn over overnight. You can't really just throw out your identity. And that more often than not leads to disaster, right? So you're probably better off to just play to your identity, even if that means, okay, well, it's risky. We are going to play attacking football against a team that's very good. Don't underestimate them. And
plays a defensive style, Manuel. Like, is the attacking football not play into the Swiss hands? I mean, what I've read of Switzerland is, they're quite comfortable with the team that wants to attack and press them.
Sure, but they're also really fast up front, right? And Bolo is one. They have a guy called Johan Manzambi, who is only 20 years old. He came through the Freiburg Academy and then was one of their most important players. Freiburg reached the Europa League final and is going to go for a ton of money on the transfer market this summer. One of the up-and-coming stars in European football. He came off the bench in the game against Bosnia and decided that game on his own, right? And so they have players that can match that in aggressiveness and attacking wise. So if Canada does this, they might, we're going to sit back, but they're also more than comfortable to also play that really aggressive style of football as well. And they have the players for it and they have the talent for it, that is the other thing that is really scary about them.
But if they attack, they've got to watch that back line. They bring that back line so high that with some fast.
This is Canada or Switzerland?
Canada play with that high back line that they get caught all the time. And if you do have speedy forwards on Switzerland,
we saw that against Bosnia.
I mean, it's so risky, right?
Yeah, there was an open channel to the keeper. Crepeau had to come on out.
And that's why Bombito doing sprints yesterday was a good sign for me, Manuel. Like, if you have Bombito as your safety net, that's fine, but he has to be 100.
Yeah, and he also has that top 5 league experience playing in Ligue A, right? I do think those things matter. And yes, he has the speed if healthy. And honestly, it's a miracle that we're now talking about him being in this team. Because I remember the preparation game, correct, the one in Edmonton, who did they play again? Uzbekistan, sorry, yes. And I watched him and I was thinking, there's no way. Yeah. There's just no way. There is just no way he's going to be fit enough, and good for him. He's now in a place where he can do it. Don't ever call football players soft again, because with that injury to play there, good for him. And if he is fit and healthy, that is a difference maker, right? Because then all of a sudden you have a class defender in there who can match what Switzerland is going to bring. Yeah.
Speaking of what Switzerland brings, this is a country and a side that has been Switzerland the good and Switzerland the bad over the years. I looked it up today. About 300 kilometers from Munich to Zurich, 3 hours door to door. In the round of 16 for 3 straight World Cups and 4 of the last 5 World Cups. This is what they do. They get through to the round of 16. Switzerland the bad have not won a knockout game since World War II. They were winners 14-2 on the aggregate in qualifying, destroying the likes of Sweden, Slovenia, and Kosovo. They were undefeated in 2025. They beat Mexico and the United States by multiple goals on North American soil. And since 2010 at major tournaments, they have results against France, Spain, Brazil, Germany, Italy. They took England to penalties in the quarterfinals of the Euros 2 years ago, the last big tournament. They also drew Qatar 1-1 and needed 74 minutes to get on the board against Bosnia. Manuel, is there any predicting what we're going to see tomorrow, Switzerland the good or Switzerland the bad?
I think they're going to be a huge pain in the ass, to be honest with you. They're a really good team. And I think, in retrospect, how did they not beat Qatar, right? They really should have. And I think that is maybe the dangerous thing, that they didn't beat Qatar, because now all of a sudden they're in a situation where there was a lot of criticism. Granit Xhaka was very outspoken before the tournament, and then was very outspoken after the Qatar game, and then after the game against Bosnia that they won, even then he said that wasn't good enough, right? And Granit Xhaka is a veteran. He's played all over Europe. He played at Arsenal. He won the Bundesliga title over Leverkusen, and then now is back in the Premier League, and he's an absolute veteran. And he understands, he knows how to read the room and how to handle really difficult situations. And he will have looked at this Canada performance and said, like, there's a storm coming, and we have to be ready for it. And, we have to be a pain in the ass for them. And this is what they do so well, right? So I think thinking that we're just going to go to a draw here and advance out of this group, it's going to be extremely difficult. This is going to be the most difficult game of the three. And it's not even going to be close.
Yep.
Right?
The most important question for last year, both teams have red and white flags. Canada will be flooding the stadium with red. Mm-hmm. Switzerland will also get picked up by seeing that. Is there something we can do last second to thwart the confusion that Switzerland is getting supported by all the red in the stands? Or what is the customary thing to do when this presents itself in Europe?
Well, usually they also bring cowbells, so maybe that is how we're going to be able to tell the difference.
No cowbells. We don't need more cowbell. We need less cowbell.
Less cowbell.
Yeah, we could raid. We could raid their financial institutions' arms over here in North America.
No cheese. We should just say no cheese either. No cheese and chocolate.
Lastly, my friend, I see the German national team jersey behind your right shoulder. I see the Canucks jersey behind your left shoulder. For those who don't know, Manuel is a massive Canucks fan. He's also a massive fan of our country. I had 5 hours on a plane each way to Florida with him. Are you more excited about Canada or the Canucks this week, Manuel?
Well, it depends who the Canucks draft.
Who's your pick?
Who's your guy?
I hope Ivar Stenberg falls to the Canucks, and they're just going to run up to the podium and pick him. I like Khalid Malhotra a lot, but I think that, you want to pick the biggest star, and you probably want to pick a player who's going to be in the building next year. Yeah. And I don't think Malhotra. I think Malhotra is committed to college.
Yes, Boston, that's right.
Yeah, so we're not going to see him. And I think this rebuild will need a face who's going to be in the team right away. And from what I've seen and heard, Stenberg looks ready to play in the NHL next year. But if I had another choice, I think they should try to get a second draft pick, and they should pick Viggo Björck as well. Somehow make that happen.
He wants all the sweets. He wants all the sweets. The ones with the German last names, the ones with the non-German last names. Just bring all the sweets.
If there's a way to get McKenna, if he can swindle the Maple Leafs out of McKenna, I'd be all for that. I just don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, he's a cousin. This is Bayern Munich shopping, where you just go down the fancy aisle and you say, "I'll take that one. I'll take that one. I'll take that one."
And you take them.
Great seeing you again, my friend. Great hearing your voice. Thank you for these last 20 minutes. Enjoy the World Cup. We'll call on you again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. Have a good one.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. The real win happens after the final buzzer. Stay downtown, stay comfortable, stay close to everything here at Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center. Your game day home base starts at wallcenter.com. Well, giant day at the World Cup, as we discussed with Manuel Veth, where at the time of this recording, Portugal is well on their way. POR for me is usually Portland as my abbreviation. Portugal is well on their way to get a victory against Uzbekistan. Cristiano Ronaldo scored, as you heard, Manuel. The
first
dilemma.
Half brace for him. The oldest player in World Cup history with 2 goals.
They've got Colombia next. That is a fetching matchup. England with a chance to lock up its group versus Ghana. Panama, Croatia, a matter of desperation. Both sides lost their opening match. And then there's the nightcap, Blake. Colombia versus the Democratic Republic of Congo, which will have the full pageantry of the World Cup on display. If you're not familiar, meet Michel Kuka Mboladinga, a.k.a. Lumumba Vea, the Congolese superfan known for his living statue routine at Congo matches since 2013. He stands there virtually motionless for 90 minutes, often with his right arm raised just so. He barely even blinks. Look at the focus and the concentration on this man as he lives the character. He's nicknamed for the first Prime Minister of Congo, Patrice Lumumba, an independence hero who was assassinated in 1961. Michel, or Lumumba Vea, believes his act gives the players emotional stamina and concentration, Blake. He's projecting. He's manifesting. He was initially denied entry into the United States, but it rose to the level of international incident for the Congolese. The prime minister intervened, and he has gotten to the tournament.
Yeah, well, the country does have an interesting political history.
Oh, it sure does.
We won't get into here, but...
Well, as we always say, if you have to put democratic in the name of your country,
methinks you don't protest too much.
Yes,
no, honestly, we're
not
democratic.
Usually a great sign.
No,
not so much.
The match also important because, again, those models, the Guardian having the live model that everybody loves so much, do project that one of Colombia or Portugal would probably end up here in Vancouver for the round of 16 match. So the results today going a long way to sort of help those predictions. We'll see those numbers, those percentages change greatly after the end of the day.
Yeah, we touched on it with Manuel, but France 3-0 over Iraq. Huge weather delay in Philadelphia didn't bother the French. Norway, Senegal was tremendous entertainment. Erling Haaland with a couple of goals. And Algeria came back on Jordan, down a goal, and scored twice to win it. Zinedine Zidane's son is the keeper for Algeria. If you're familiar, the great French hero from their World Cup victory, then the GOAT for the headbutt against Italy in the final. He's originally from Algeria. His son plays for their national team. Whitecaps made a move today. Jodrik Pupa is going back to his, this is a Belgian club, Sint Trudense VV.
I thought he had already been sent back.
Yeah. Anyways, well, they put out a post today. So they're now down Pupa and AZ Jackson since the World Cup break.
He was on loan to them.
Yes.
Since January.
That's
right. Permanent, yes.
The Caps next play July 8th at Swangard Stadium in the Canadian Championship quarterfinals against Cavalry FC of Calgary. Decimated at wide receiver with 4 starters out and a 5th, Justin McInnes, who's 50-50 to play this week. The BC Lions re-signed Canadian wide receiver Hergy Mayala and 6'6" American Michael Fitzgerald, both of whom were at training camp. Mayala has played 72 CFL games with Calgary, Montreal, Edmonton. He looked good in preseason. If they get on the field Saturday, they would already be the 11th and 12th receivers used by the BC Lions.
These are professional football playing receivers?
This season, yeah.
Come on in.
It's kind of like Canucks defensemen.
Yes.
You've got to go 12 deep at the position because you're going to use them over the course of the long season. Lions host the Stampeders Saturday in an expanded Apple Bowl, the first of 2 touchdown Kelowna games. Right tackle Dejon Allen seems good to go after leaving Friday's loss in Hamilton late. They are less sure about starting left guard Kirby Yates. Lions have 2 O-linemen on the PR, and Canadian backup George Una has dressed this season. But it could be 2 position groups on offense that are really hit by injuries. As for the CFL, scoring is not just up. It is way up, Blake. It is up 10 points per game to 62.8. Now, it's still a small sample size. We're only 3 weeks in. And scoring was already on its way up because they have moved touchbacks way up the field compared to where they used to be. So scoring's up. The games are entertaining and close. Attendance remains an issue in a couple of markets. Now, Hamilton and Calgary both bounced back up over 20,000 after having paltry crowds for their home openers.
Which doesn't explain that to me like I'm 6.
Yeah. Toronto, Ottawa was not good. Less than 14,000 in the nation's capital, and you can't blame a driving rainstorm like the Red Blacks had for their home opener, which kept fans away. Edmonton drew just 14,664. Their new team president, Chris Morris, who was a longtime and outstanding lineman for the club. Well, he blames the name change, but says we're not going back. Others blame a 2-year losing streak at home
the
at
name change
Commonwealth.
was years ago.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll say that I did not see this particular, like it does seem like it's a particular dip this year. Did not forecast the coming. Like I feel like the concussion issue came up, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago to really start a front burner. And I was worried about the CFL in particular because we started to see a little bit of pushback against the sport in general. But I feel like that's sort of been swept away a little bit. I don't see people humming and hawing about the sport as an existential, thing anymore. And I feel like the NFL is back to soaring heights. And people might say, well, that's the problem. Generally football begets football.
Commercial audiences have a huge appetite for violence. I was less concerned about the commercial audiences for football. I mean, there's huge audiences for MMA, boxing, violent films and TV. So I was more concerned about the player pool and maybe the player pool a lesser product on the field.
But I don't even think that's
people away.
To pass.
No, I mean the quarterbacking is really good right now in the CFL. I mean, Bo Levi Mitchell, Nathan Rourke, Caleros.
The college programs are still churning
when they're
out talent.
healthy. We've got some excellent quarterbacks around the league right now. Alexander, the kid in Montreal, hasn't lost yet in the regular season. So we'll see where attendance goes this week. Obviously, they can only put so many people in the Apple Bowl, so it may drag down overall numbers. But the games this year have been pretty good. Blue Jays beat Houston 4-2. They get their record back to 500 at 39-39 just before the midpoint of the season. And Shane Bieber makes his 2026 debut tonight. The 2020 Cy Young Award winner was battling forearm fatigue and elbow inflammation. He was held back at spring training. He pitched to a 3.57 ERA in 7 starts last year after coming over in the trade with Cleveland, and he started 4 postseason games as well for the Jays. Seattle is into Pittsburgh for a 3-game set with the Pirates, holding a 1.5-game lead over the Athletics in the AL West. We should also mention, we're at the halfway mark. We could still have a Seattle-Toronto derby here with regards to that third wild card because the Jays are in position. Whoever loses out on the AL West is going to be in position for that third wild card. It looks very much like the Yankees and Tampa are going to finish first and second in the AL East.
Oh, really?
So one of them is going to win the division, one's going to win the wild card. We think. Tampa's got a history of fading in the second half.
Have you noticed the winning percentage of those Toronto Blue Jays?
They've been the best team in the American League.
5-0-0. Yeah. They are a 500 team. They win today.
Yeah.
That's a winning baseball team right there.
And, last year it was May when they got hot, but they do have a history of second half surgery. We can go back to 2015. Mariners going to avoid Paul Skeens in Pittsburgh. That's probably for the best as well. He's terrific. Vancouver Canadians back at it today in Hillsborough. Second 6-game series of this 2-week road trip against the Hops. Could very well have another Canadian named Northwest League Player of the Week after they mashed in Spokane like they have never mashed before in a 6-game series in the high A era. Here's Tucker Toman. We're going to have him on the show coming up, who has been the best hitter in the Blue Jays system outside of Sean Keyes. And we had Sean here last year, who's having an extraordinary season, AA, AAA. Toman is hitting nearly 300, OPS of over 900. He's been one of the catalysts offensively for the Seas. They return home 1 week from today to celebrate 75 years of Nat Bailey Stadium with a AAA pennant giveaway and post-game fireworks after next Wednesday's Canada Day game. We say it every year when the kids are out of school. Nat Bailey and the Seas become the hottest ticket in town. Plan ahead and get yours, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. A gigantic trade in the NBA yesterday. See, here's what the NHL has got to live up to, right?
Well, they did. The Brady Tkachuk trade is pretty damn big.
Great. Where was the trade last year? Where was the trade here? Giannis Antetokounmpo, the NBA MVP, NBA Finals MVP, league champion, is off to the Miami Heat for a haul of players and picks. Once again, it's taking talents to South Beach. Tyler Hero, Kalel Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Kasparis Yakachonis, 4 roster players, as well as 3 first-round picks, including number 13 overall in next week's draft. Hero is a Milwaukee guy. Ware is a terrific young up-and-coming big. Jaquez was in contention for 6th man of the year. He's a pretty good piece himself. They've got future pick swaps, a second-rounder, except the other picks are well down the road here. Milwaukee is gambling that Miami will be out of a competitive window between 2030 and 2033. That's what you do now in the NBA, Blake, to hope that those picks are as high as possible. Boston Celtics finished as the runner-up here. They were offering Jaylen Brown and 2 first-round picks, and Brown could still be traded.
I was pretty excited about this trade until I reminded myself how old Giannis is and ultimately how old I am as a result. Do you know how old Giannis is?
Well, I'm going to guess he's over 30 now.
Yep.
31?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, he's still a great player, but...
Yes.
I mean, he's 31.
Are his best days behind him? It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And major changes now official in the PGA Tour. We don't have all the details just yet, but sweeping changes to the competitive model. We've talked about this. There will now be 2 series of tournaments starting in 2028 called PGA Tour Championship Series and PGA Tour Challenger Series. There will be a formalized structure of promotion and relegation. 23 to 24 events are on the championship series, including the players, all the majors, the big ones. 10 championship series events are confirmed, with the rest coming in either Boston, Denver, New York, Philly, San Francisco, Seattle, Washington, D.C. We've talked about this. Roll-Up has looked at it and said, we're in all these itty-bitty little markets. We've got to get into the major population centers. Championship Series events, minimum purse of $20 million, 120-man fields, no alternate list, no sponsors exemptions, 72 holes, cut down to the top 65 and ties. They are introducing match play as part of the playoff events. I know you hate match play.
Oh, man.
But that could be fun as we get down to the playoffs. And then the top players from the Championship Series will be eligible for limited series fall international events in partnership with the DP World Tour. More on those in a second. The Challenger Series, $4 million purses, 20 events, hosted at familiar PGA Tour venues. Those will be players trying to work their way up to the Championship Series events. There will also be a Last Chance Series in the fall, basically like a glorified Q school trying to get to the big tour.
So is the Challenger the Corn Ferry, or does the Corn Ferry live on?
It's effectively the Corn Ferry. Yeah. I don't know if the Corn Ferry will live on, and it will be like AA now, Blake.
Yeah.
But the Challenger Series is basically AAA now. Now, the status of the RBC Canadian Open is not yet known. There are 3 possibilities. If it's a Challenger event, that means the top players who qualify for the championship events, and right now that would be Corey Connors, Abbotsford's Nick Taylor, Taylor Pendrith, Sudarshan Yelamaraju, they would not be eligible to play in the RBC Canadian Tournament.
Couldn't they elect to play there?
They are not going to be. If you're a championship series player, you are not allowed to play in the challenger events. If it is deemed a championship event, it would technically no longer be an open. You can't be an open if you're the best 120 players are.
But the U.S. Open's allowed to be an open.
There would be no sponsors exemption, so all those young Canadians who get into the RBC Canadian Open would not. There would be no win your way in, as we saw this year with some British Columbians. Or will it be part of this fall series of championship events in conjunction with the DP World Tour? That's supposed to be prominent national opens, but my question is, will the best players want to play in those events? Like, do the best players want to go traveling all over the world to play in these big international tournaments? They're not really doing that much today anyway.
It really depends on what the schedule looks like leading up to those events. Like, if it's been a relatively relaxed schedule and they've had some time off and all that sort of stuff, then...
Well, they do, but that's the problem, Blake. They just want more time off. Bob Weeks, the authority on Canadian golf. Not sure if Brian Rowlap will announce specific events today, but two very reliable sources last week told me the RBC Canadian Open will be part of the championship series. If true, it would mean big changes for the national Open.
Unless what you just said is true, and that hadn't really been addressed with Bob, because maybe there'll be an open season.
Yeah. Look, though something will be lost with the tradition of the Canadian Open, if you're asking me as a golf fan, what would I prefer? I want the Canadian tournament being part of the championship series. I recognize Scotty and Rory didn't play this year, but I want the best players on Canadian soil and a once-a-year opportunity to go see the best of the best in the game play on a Canadian course.
Well, truthfully, the Canadian Open allowing 20-odd Canadians in was charming and fun when we weren't a world power in golf. Now that we can actually submit 4 to 5 legitimate players in a championship series event, there's CanCon every week. There'll be CanCon at the Canadian Tour event.
Maybe we just change it, Blake. It's no longer the Canadian Open. It's the Canadian, whatever you want to call it. And maybe Golf Canada still holds a Canadian Open where there is qualifying, where guys like Connors and Taylor and those who are championship series players could still, on their own volition, if they want to win a national championship, go and qualify, or maybe they automatically qualify if you're in the world top 100 or wherever the case may be.
Second tournament, so it's more sponsorship to sell and all that.
I know. Anyways, we'll see how it all hashes out. Results of the daily poll question from Monday. We asked you, should the Canucks avoid drafting American players? Yes, no, or only with high picks? Blake, it was very close. That's your clue.
Only with high picks one.
No.
Really?
Third.
Really?
Yeah, I know. 18%. No got 41.6% of the vote. Yes got 40.3% of the vote. Not much separating them.
Well, no, but when you, with conditions or not with conditions, 58% are saying yes in some way, shape, or form.
Jonathan, do people think the Canucks would have been better off not drafting Quinn Hughes? Multiple busts taken after that. They wouldn't have netted any trade return. They had just turned back their European leagues and resulted in nothing. It's true. A lot of people were citing the asset value of the American players if they want out, because even in I want out distressed trades, Quinn Hughes netted the Canucks quite a haul. Brady Tkachuk netted the Senators quite a haul.
Yes, he did, but he also set the program back, right? Like, they were thinking they're on the cusp of being a good team, and now
he has, unless they take those picks and go and get players,
but there's effort involved there, right? You save yourself the headache of doing all that.
Yeah, Veth says, I've been saying this for 3 to 4 years now. DB, just be better and they will stay. Vancouver is nice. That's fair.
Maybe. We don't know that.
Skridler, I voted yes, but with the caveat that they just need to be really cautious about it. Look at who the players follows on social, potential connections to other organizations, statements made in the past, all that. A guy like Brock is an example that it can be very successful. Yep, good shout, Skridler. And Jane says, don't draft any player with character issues. And only guys with character flaws would go and do what Brady did. Okay. Thanks for joining us, everybody. No E or O from yesterday's show. He was perfect again. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Normally noon Pacific. Tomorrow, the show will be going at the conclusion of the Canada-Switzerland match, so you're looking at about 2 p.m. Jeff Patterson will be sitting in for me. I will be at the match. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.